What are we delving into today, Erin?
So today, I think we are going to talk about psychopaths. What is a psychopath? How do you recognise one?
Am I one?
Am I one? And what to do about it.
I think this is a really interesting topic. Even as a psychologist, I still have to kind of really rack my brain around what's a psychopath, what's a sociopath, how does that apply to narcissism?
Yeah.
Am I one? Do I know one?
Do you know what? I find it quite hard to define it.
Yeah.
Because psychopathy is basically, it's a personality construct. So it's essentially a personality type, but I've also heard it described as a type of neurodivergence. You might think that psychopathy is like a disorder. It's antisocial personality disorder that is the disorder associated with psychopathy. So psychopathy, you can be a psychopath but not have antisocial personality disorder. You can have like some psychopathic traits, some sociopathic traits, some narcissistic traits. Like, again, that's another good example of this. Narcissism, it's a bit like a spectrum really, isn't it? So you can have some narcissistic traits, but you don't have narcissistic personality disorder. So it's not necessarily always expressed as a disorder that you'd find in the DSM. So the DSM is the manual of all the different psychological disorders or psychiatric disorders that are out there. Apparently, back in the 1950s, it was like a tiny little leaflet, and now it's massive. So you could have a bit of fun reading through that to try and diagnose yourself. It's not necessarily a disorder. It can be described as a personality type, basically. A personality construct.
Interesting, because I feel like that's the bit that we're not clear on in everyday life.
Yeah.
In that difference between a trait or a personality trait and when it becomes a disorder. And that's the bit. So you could have some of the traits, but it isn't necessarily a disorder. So a disorder would stop you from functioning in the way that you want to in the world, or it's a challenge that you might need help managing or dealing with or getting past. But the traits aren't necessarily like that.
No.
Okay, so what's the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath? Because this one trips me up.
Yeah, me too. So this is it's quite subtle, but there are a few key differences.
Okay.
So first of all, let's define a psychopath. Basically, a psychopath is somebody who can be recognized and identified as not having any remorse, acting, as I said, sort of in an antisocial way and not worrying about the consequences, always acting in their pursuit of their own goals without feeling any empathy for others. And then obviously sometimes that expresses itself in behavior that goes a bit too far. Psychopaths apparently do actually have some emotion, though. Sometimes you think, there's no emotion at all there, but actually I think apparently psychopaths do have the sort of the innate emotions like happiness, sadness, fear. But they then don't go on to learn or experience the more kind of socialized emotions. So like regret or remorse, whereas sociopaths do. To a lesser extent than the rest of the population, they still experience those emotions to a lesser extent, but they do experience them. So one way to look at it is, if you think you know a psychopath, you probably know a sociopath. And the reason I say that is because a sociopath will probably reveal themselves more easily because they will get overcome by their emotion. Whereas a psychopath will be on track to doing whatever they're doing, and you won't recognize it because they are so calculated and so unable to experience the emotion that it doesn't actually trip them up. So that's a really key difference. The ability to just keep calm without any emotion is the psychopath, whereas a sociopath is a lot more volatile emotionally.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's I've never thought about it like that before. So that's such a key differentiator between the two. So the chances are, if we think we know a psycho, we probably, or psychopath, we probably know a sociopath.
Yeah, probably.
Right. Okay.
And
but lots of people are sociopaths that kind of live a normal life.
Yeah.
There was that, do you remember the book that author recently that talks about being...
Patrick Gagne, I think is her name, isn't it?
Yeah. that talks about being a sociopath and what that feels like to live with. So it is possible to have an everyday life.
Yeah.
But it just might look or feel a bit different.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are, you know, as Hollywood would have you believe, a cold-blooded killer.
And isn't that the Hitchcock thing? Because I've got that image of the shower.
Psycho. Yeah.
That wasn't the idea of a psycho made up by Hitchcock for Hollywood.
Yeah. Basically, it's like it became that idea of psycho became like proliferated around that movie, and it used in common parlance because of that movie.
So I guess, like, thinking then, what do we, if we do have some of those traits, either ourselves or we know someone, what do we do with them, or how do we know if we've got those traits?
So, actually, do you know what I remembered? I had totally forgotten about this because when I knew we were going to talk about this on the podcast, I was thinking about particularly psychopaths and sociopaths in work, because psychopaths and sociopaths definitely exist more commonly in boardrooms and in leadership positions. You can take from that what you will. But most of us, I think, when we're thinking about this, like if you're thinking about this, listening to this, do you know a psychopath? I bet you're thinking about somebody who you've come across at some stage or another in the workplace. It might be that you know them socially as well or personally, but I can certainly, I don't know about you, can you think of somebody who you've worked with? Yeah. I definitely can.
Yeah, 100%.
And actually, I read this book years ago, and it was only just when I was thinking about this podcast that I remembered about it, and it's called Snakes and Suits. Have you ever read that?
No.
It's a really good read for this purpose. It's all about psychopaths and existence in the workplace and how they reveal themselves in the workplace, or not, as the case may be, and how common it is that, you know, that psychopaths actually manage to get into a workplace and work their way up as well. And when I was looking again, because I had a look at the book, and I just took a few notes on how to recognize it in the workplace. So if you're thinking you might know a psychopath and that you're working with one or have worked for one, think about this. So do they constantly distort your reality, make you doubt your own worth, question the legitimacy of your own knowledge? That's a common one, I think, in the workplace, isn't it?
Yeah.
People doing that to you. Make you very aware of your vulnerabilities and then use it against you. Get irritated when you try to present them with clarity. I find that one as well. I've noticed that one a lot in the workplace. So the reason I read this actually at the time was because I was doing a lot of work in culture change programs. And I was getting frustrated because in the workplace, when you try and change culture, it has to come from the leadership first and foremost. But often what you'll find is that leadership, in some ways, some leaders may not be complete psychopaths, but do have these traits. And actually, of course, you know, if you're dealing with somebody like this, it's going to be really toxic. So you're never going to change culture. But that was one thing that I used to notice quite a bit, was being presented with when people like that are presented with clarity. They love going around causing chaos. And when you then present them with clarity, they get really irritated and they don't want it.
Well, I guess when they're presenting chaos, they're in charge. Like, they're controlling the environment and the narrative and
100%
how people are reacting to that. So that kind of makes sense. Like a controlling factor.
Yeah. And then they make you feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells, you're constantly having to placate them. Like, you're questioning your own reality then, because you're going, they are treating me this way, but yet I'm somehow having to placate them. Or you're worried about them feeling you're doubting their trust as well. That's another big one. So you're worried about them saying to you, "What, do you not trust me?" It's like you're going, "No, I don't trust you, but I'm scared of you." Yeah,
that's probably the bit, is the fear.
Yeah.
Especially if they're in control as well, like in terms of hierarchy and seniority, this is why I think it's so obvious in workplaces, because there's always going to be a hierarchy in a workplace.
Always, yeah. And this is what they do as well, actually, according to that book. And I really like the way because I've definitely seen this playing out so many times when I've been observing teams. They either find patrons or pawns. So a patron might be somebody, so if they're quite senior themselves, they'll find somebody equally as senior or more senior to them to kind of be on their side, to advocate for them. And then they also find pawns, so people who are maybe more junior to them and people who they can basically boss around and tell them what to do. And so again, if you notice somebody who seems to do this in the workplace, where they kind of have all these people who kind of, they're basically, have you ever felt like that? I have.
Oh, yeah.
In the workplace where it's like, I'm basically a pawn in this person's game.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't realise at the time and it kind of gets revealed later.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or you look back and you think, because I think about some bits in my career, I look back and think, what was I thinking? Or how did I get myself into that situation? And yet actually, you don't know at the time. And I think partly maybe it's experience that you learn some of this stuff, but also partly sometimes you have to move out of the situation to realise what, like to look back in, to realise what it was like. It's so hard sometimes to see this stuff from the inside out.
Really
like,
hard. Plus, like if you think about it, this is why it's so common in the workplace, because we're all just there to try, and most of us go to work because of course we want to pay the bills. But also, generally speaking, most of us go in because we want to work with our colleagues, do a good job, build on our career, and we're not really thinking strategically about how to get one up on somebody else most of the time, right?
Yeah, but you say that, but then I think about like, there's so many people, so many examples I have of people doing that. So maybe more people than you realise are doing that.
Absolutely. And that's what, yeah, exactly. And that's why actually towards the end of the phase of my career when I was working on culture change programs, I just found it quite difficult because I was just thinking, well, there's one thing about trying to change this culture and make this place a sort of a better place for everybody to work and deliver better outcomes for customers. But actually, what we're really dealing with here is people, just individuals in pursuit of their own goals and trying to get one over on other people. So there's no point in trying to change culture around that. That's just going to cause toxicity until that person goes.
And in your experience, because you've done a lot of culture work, is it normally one person or is it normally a group of people?
It can be almost cultural so in that situation, it's probably less like there's a psychopathic individual and more just a bit of a culture of bullying to get, because actually that can happen in an organization where maybe it's happened at a time when the organization has been in trouble and people have had to just be really ruthless to get ahead. So they start bullying each other, they start, acting out in that way and start to realize, oh, I can actually do this successfully and this is how I get from A to B. Mm-hmm. So it starts to become endemic then rather than, a way of like collaborating. Like, imagine that, collaborating to reach your goal. No, instead it's about bullying each other to reach your goals. And that just becomes like a norm.
I have seen that so many times.
So many times, yeah.
So many times.
And yeah, and so in that case, it might necessarily be, and we should say that, like, if you recognize any of those behaviors in somebody who you know or in maybe a boss you've had or whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are a psychopath because, those are just a collection of things that you might have noticed. So it doesn't necessarily mean that. But I do think it's interesting because when I read all of those things, I think I've seen all of those things playing out in the workplace.
So let's talk about like diagnosing then,
yes.
Like whether you're a psychopath. Can we do that for ourselves and for other people? Because I feel like, a lot of these psychology terms, we see them on social media or we read articles about them. And how many, psychology experts are out there that have watched a quick video on something or read an article. Can we tell if we have those traits or someone else does effectively? And secondly, I guess, like, should we be thinking about that? And because kind of, as you mentioned, there's loads of stuff that we might see certain traits, but you don't necessarily see the whole picture with someone else. Even as a trained psychologist, like there was so much information I would need to be able to piece things together. I was saying this to you yesterday, like I popped in to pick up a prescription the other day and the person was like, oh, there's doctor on your prescription. Are you a doctor? And I was like, yeah, I'm a doctor. To be fair, it was quite a tricky day with the kids as well. So I was a bit like, oh, I just need to get out of here. I was like, yeah. And I was like, not medical. She's like, oh, what kind of doctor? I'm a psychologist. Oh, are you always analysing people? And I was like, well, that is my job. Yeah, I do. She's like, but like right now. And I was like, no. I need so much information to do my job well. I can't have like a 30-second encounter.
It would be very handy.
I mean, it would be amazing. I think I'd be a multi-millionaire if I'd managed to crack that. And it's very hopeful. And I get the curiosity about it. We ask that kind of stuff all the time. But like to that point, well, I guess we also have to be a bit careful as well about how we're thinking, like if we're diagnosing other people.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to say, these are the traits I've seen, or these are the behaviours that I've seen. But I think...
And you can. I mean, it's exactly. I think that you just have to apply a bit of critical thinking to it, don't you? Like, you know, I've recognised these behaviours. I've recognised these traits in this person. Maybe they're a psychopath, but I don't know because I haven't been in a clinical setting with them where they've actually had this diagnosis. But there is a test, Gemma. Do you want to find out what it's about?
I don't know, do I? I'm not sure.
Should we go through it? And then people who are listening can think it through as well. So this is something that's readily available. It is designed by a psychologist, Robert Hare. It is used to diagnose psychopathy.
Okay.
Or to recognise it. I've always found it easy to convince people to do favours for me. Now, it's a scale of 1 to 5 from disagree to agree.
Medium? I'd say average, like normal.
3.
Average amount.
Okay. Do you want me to do it for you and then we'll reveal your result at the end? Do you feel confident?
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident you're not a psychopath.
Well, I wouldn't be so confident because if I am a psychopath, I'm probably hiding it.
Well, this is the thing we haven't said yet, actually, is that they are absolute masters at creating personas and masks.
This could all be a persona.
So, I mean, I've known you for quite some time. It would be pretty impressive if you've managed to pull the one over my eyes for this long. But anyway, we'll go further.
We'll see what the test reveals.
Yeah. When I know someone is struggling, I think of them often and hope they're doing okay.
Agree.
Yeah.
Very
Fully agree.
Very agree.
Yeah.
Very agree. Very much agree.
Other people make so many stupid mistakes compared to me.
Right. As an aside here, would someone that is an actual psychopath actually answer these questions correctly? Like, honestly. Anyway, I will answer
a good
this
question
honestly.
about the validity.
So I think people make stupid mistakes compared to me. No, I don't think that.
Fully disagree, or would you give it a 1 up from fully?
1 up from fully. Because some people do make a lot of mistakes.
Some people do, to be fair. There's some idiots out there.
There are.
Also, we should say, making mistakes isn't a bad thing.
Well, I mean, I'm getting myself in a right old hole here because I talk about failure all the time.
I know,
and
I was just about to
mistakes.
say.
And obviously, anyway, let's pause on that one.
Let's go. No, we'll put a pin in that one for another episode. I don't see a problem with lying if it helps me get what I want.
Now, I can't fully disagree with this.
Should we have some examples? Maybe not. Let's move past that one.
So I'd say mostly disagree, but not 100% fully disagree. Because it depends what the lie is about. If it's a white lie or no, that's for your, it just does very much sound like for your own benefit, doesn't it?
If it's telling your kids that there's no vegetables in the sauce, but there are vegetables in the sauce.
Well, you got to lie.
Because then, I
mean, obviously, I've just come through, like, warning alert for any parents listening to this. I've just had another tooth fairy.
That's a good
situation.
example.
I've had multiple tooth fairy situations where I've forgotten. But the tooth fairy has forgotten what her job is. So, so sometimes there might be things that aren't always truthful around that.
Okay.
We'll leave it at that.
I see. Yes. Fair point. We can elaborate on all of this again. Okay. If someone told me that I hurt their feelings, I would feel badly.
Yeah. Caveat depends who it is, but generally speaking, yes.
So fully agree?
Fully agree. Generally speaking.
In truth, I find most people boring or stupid.
I feel like I'm being set up here. No, I don't agree with that. Not most people.
Okay.
Not most people. So Like
In the middle?
no,
Oh, no, I'm leading you now. Sorry.
no, like slightly disagree.
Okay. People often blame me for things that are actually their fault.
Oh God.
I feel like this is the kids one again.
Yeah.
I definitely get blamed for stuff.
Okay, disagree, but not
Yeah.
fully. No,
Okay.
disagree.
Okay. People who refuse to break rules out of principle are foolish. They'll never get ahead.
I don't know if I can. I don't agree with that, but I can see how that would sometimes be the case. So, I'm going to
Where am I going?
to disagree, but not fully, disagree.
Okay. Seeing someone cry has little effect on me, other than maybe irritating me.
No, that one I fully disagree.
Okay.
I would be quite upset
Yeah.
if someone was upset. Thank God.
This is a good one. It's fun to antagonize people just to see how upset they get.
I actually fully disagree with this.
Yeah.
But I have witnessed this in one of my
Same.
children frequently. So now I'm wondering, do I need to intervene? Hopefully it's a child thing.
And definitely I've seen that one in the workplace as well.
Oh, 100%.
Like not as overtly as our kids would do it, but not that far off. I get uncomfortable at the thought of committing a crime.
I do actually. One of my biggest fears is prison.
Oh, okay. So agree. So you're afraid of prison, but you don't mind the lack of ethics of
Precisely.
It's just the
just
prison
the prison.
aspect, okay? I usually know just what to say to make other people do what I want.
God. No, I'd say I'm in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle for that.
I mean,
Average.
that would be quite a good skill to have.
If I was going to choose one, I'd probably choose
Probably
that.
choose that.
Yeah.
I'll do whatever it takes to feel a thrill.
Oh God.
I think yes to that one.
But I don't like roller coasters.
Oh.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
but I do quite like a bit of novelty and
Yeah.
living on the edge a little bit and kind of dicing with, is this allowed? Is this not allowed? So I do. So I'd say agree, but not strongly agree.
Okay.
Only because of the roller coaster bit.
Okay.
If we didn't take that into account, I might be stronger.
Okay. It is important to honour financial obligations.
Yes, it is. I agree.
Yeah.
Very much agree.
Everyone else seems emotional and whiny compared to me.
Oh my God. Disagree. I don't agree with that at all. Disagree.
Disagree strongly.
Strongly disagree.
Yeah. Helping other people instead of focusing on myself is usually a waste of time.
Oh God. No, I disagree.
Disagree.
I enjoy helping other people.
Yeah.
For sure.
Pro-social.
Very pro-social. Strongly disagree.
I don't understand people who are anxious or fearful all the time because nothing really scares me.
Well, prison scares me.
Yeah.
So I can't agree with that. I disagree. Strongly disagree.
Some people just aren't meant to succeed in life, and that's not my problem.
So I disagree.
Mm-hmm.
But equally, I do think it is important that people are accountable for their lives. So I can kind of see the accountability aspect.
Yes.
But I disagree.
Yes. Okay.
I feel like I sound awful.
I wear my heart on my sleeve.
Medium. It depends who it, like with friends maybe, but not with, Betty and Tesco.
Being interviewed on a podcast.
I mean, I feel like I'm pretty much wearing my heart on my sleeve right now. I'm being genuinely very honest.
You didn't know what you're getting yourself in for here. This is the last one.
Okay.
If a rule or law would get in the way of my goals, I feel justified in breaking it.
God. But it kind of depends. Right, okay. Law, I'm scared of prison.
Yeah.
So, agreed. Rule, depends what the rule's there for. I mean, think about school, all the silly rules there were with stuff. Sometimes they're there to be tested. And barriers are there to be pushed sometimes.
I think that's a difficult question, actually, because there's a big difference between a rule and a law.
100%. Law, I think I disagree. Do I disagree? Is that what was the question again?
I feel justified in breaking it.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I wouldn't break the law. Would I break a rule? I've broken millions of rules. Like, I think I'm going to go in the middle.
Do you want to go in the middle on that one?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Should we do your score?
Oh, I'm so excited for the big reveal.
So you haven't got no antisocial tendencies.
Fabulous.
You have a few antisocial tendencies.
Oh man. However, that thing didn't take into account context. You know, like the rule.
It was a 20-item questionnaire, I think. Honestly, no. I mean, you were, yeah.
Where has it put me?
And very much the lower end of the spectrum. So you're not, no. You were definitely not a psychopath. Put it that way.
Brilliant. Okay, according to that test,
you are not a psychopath.
But actually, this is interesting because think how much context came up there.
Yeah, that's what I find really interesting about this.
That's what's really hard when we're looking at someone else and thinking, oh, are they a psychopath? Or it could be the odd trait that someone has. But then actually, does it really matter? Because if what we're really getting into, like as you just said at the end there, is whether someone is pro-social or antisocial, they could have those things with or without psychopath traits.
Yeah.
So is that the thing that's important? And if we're dealing with someone that is antisocial, how do we deal with that?
And another thing to really kind of fox you is if you think about it, if you're a psychopath and you see that actually behaving in a pro-social way will get you to your goals, you could be very much like, there's lots of, for example, psychopathic people who do a lot of pro-social things, you know, for example, in government.
Exactly.
They will be seen to...
100% is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. They will be seen to do things for the good of the greater society. But in actual fact, it is all in pursuit of getting to their goal of power and influence. So it's really complex.
Okay. So you did the test. Were you a psychopath?
I did. No, I wasn't. I was wondering if you were going to ask me. I did it, and I am not a psychopath.
I was about to move on then. I was like, hang on a second.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've closed this off, actually. Okay, so we've talked about ways that we're not saying definitely, might be able to spot a psychopath.
Yeah.
We have talked about ways that you might want to find out if you yourself are a psychopath. And actually, obviously, this test can help with that. How do we deal with someone that is displaying some of these behaviours?
And again, I imagine lots of people listening, and I know yourself and myself, we definitely have in the workplace come across this and have had to find ways to deal with it. I'm saying the workplace just because it's a sort of, it's a social context that most of us know and is familiar to most of us, you know, because obviously lots of different families are very different.
But this can also be in a family as well.
Yeah.
It could be in a friendship group. It could be in a family setting.
Yeah.
But the thing about the workplace as well is that often there are lots of people, and families are more complicated because you've got emotional connections with family members, whereas you won't always necessarily have that in the workplace. It's like a whole bunch of people thrown together that otherwise wouldn't know each other. So sometimes I think it's easier to spot these things in that context. And also with families, in some ways, you don't know any different because it might have always been there since you were born.
Yeah.
So no, I think looking at this from a workplace lens kind of highlights how this could play out in everyday life, in real life.
Definitely.
And there is also evidence that their representation of psychopathy, is that how I say it? In the workplace is overrepresented in leadership roles. Yeah. Like that, we know that. So it's quite a good example to use.
Just makes you think that maybe we really need to do something about how our workplaces are set up. That we are actually rewarding people who behave like that. Anyway, that's for another episode maybe.
Yeah, 100%. So what can we do
what
then?
we do? Well, I think there's a couple of things. Firstly, know your own vulnerabilities. Because if you know, one of the things that I said there about what they might do is that they will prey on your vulnerabilities. So you have to be prepared and know what they are so that you can spot them doing that and step away from it. And, you know, prepare yourself in some way. And then I think it's all about setting your own boundaries around it. The thing is, you're probably never going to change that person. If it is a psychopath who is behaving in this way and is, really challenging to deal with, and it's in a situation that you cannot remove yourself from. So whether that's, in your team at work and you're not, most people, you could just say, well, you should just leave your job. But a lot of people can't just leave a job. So if it's in a situation like that where it's within your team or obviously, as you say, maybe a family member or in your friendship circle, you have to find ways to deal with it. And I think in that situation, it's setting your own boundaries. You're not going to be able, in other contexts, you might say, well, sit down with the person and try and have that boundary management conversation. I would say in this situation, it's probably not worthwhile. It's probably worthwhile just being aware of your own boundaries, and saying to yourself, okay, I will listen to them talking about this thing for 5 minutes and then I will move on. Remind yourself, or I need to, yes, okay, in your friendship group, I will go to the thing that they'll be at, but I'll only go on my own terms and I'll leave at this time. Just set yourself up in a way that reminds you, I am still in control, even though they are going to try and take control of my situation. So knowing your own boundaries, I think, is a really important one.
I like what you mentioned earlier as well, right at the start, about they don't like when you bring clarity to chaos. So I think don't be afraid of that, because it probably will feel really uncomfortable, because the chances are they'll make you feel really uncomfortable. Like you're either not quite getting the point, or you're doubting them, or you're challenging. But I think if you know that ahead of time, and that's one of your strategies to make things seem clear, especially if they are clear to you. Think about a workplace. It might be like, so you're saying X, Y, and Z. We could do this. I think don't be afraid of that. Yeah. And I think if the other person gets offended or annoyed, that's on them.
Yeah.
Like, I think don't be afraid to where you see, I'm not saying you have to force it, but where you see clarity or where you can make things less chaotic, feel empowered to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Which I know is sometimes easier said than done. I totally, because the other thing, we talk about is people that have these traits often are in control as well. They're often in positions of power, or in another way they have gained control.
Yeah.
Perhaps because they are the loudest person in the room, or they have created an environment around them where everyone else is like the pawns, where everyone else is kind of championing them or doing what they want done. So you might sometimes feel like a bit of an outlier, but that's okay. And keep reminding yourself that it's okay to not be, because sometimes I think about my experiences of this kind of thing. Like, you look around the room and everyone's doing what these people want, or you just think, there's been times where I think to myself, why? Why are we all doing this? But it's something that's been created, and it's okay to think differently. It's okay to see it differently. And find those small moments where you can say something that is different. But equally, I do think you have to protect yourself in these situations as well. And sometimes, depending on the context, sometimes the easiest thing to do is to have your boundaries where you can have them. So boundaries, I guess, are like rules or ways of behaving that suit you and protect you. But equally, you won't always be in control of it. And I think finding ways to make sure you're looking after yourself outside of that situation is really important as well. So think about the other kinds of people that you're socializing with, or who your support system are, or kind of having a different frame of reference when it comes to what's acceptable, what's, I don't want to say normal, because there is no normal, but like what's a general way that it's okay to behave, like reminding yourself that, and surrounding, where you can surround yourself with people that reflect that in your life. Yeah,
I think that's a really good one. And actually that reminds me as well, in the workplace, try not to be alone with them, which I know sounds a bit kind of sensationalist, but just because sometimes when a personality like that might actually try and convince you of things or confuse you, and it's actually really important to have somebody else as your witness in that situation, or keep a paper trail. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
If they're asking you to do something you're not comfortable doing, or you feel like it's just that sort of, I'm being a pawn in your game here, confirm it on an email so that you have it for future reference. But I think that's right. Just also tap into other people who you trust and make sure that you are surrounding yourself otherwise with people who you feel actually are healthy for you to be around.
And sometimes you might have to leave the situation. Like, think about relationships, for example, and again, I know it's not always easy to do. I totally get that. And every situation is going to be nuanced and different. But don't forget, I know you can't just switch jobs. I know you can't just walk out of a house all the time and never go back. Like, I get there are things you might have to put in place to make these transitions and make these changes. But don't forget, you do actually, maybe not immediately straight away, but like over the long term, you do have choice over this and some agency. And don't forget that. Don't let someone else chip away at you and make you believe that you have to do what they want you to do or behave in the way that they think is acceptable or in the system that they've created. Yeah. And sometimes it does take like a little bit of stepping back and thinking, hang on a second, this just doesn't fit with me. I am going to have to change jobs. I am going to have to get out of that relationship. Totally. I am going to have to not talk to that person. And I get those things can take time, but you can make those decisions. Yeah. So what are we thinking then in terms of, I always dread to say this on this topic, the good, the bad, the blurry. So is there anything good about psychopaths?
Well, I think what's good about it to remember when it comes to psychopaths or sociopaths is that, it can be a bit scary and chilling to think that there are lots of psychopaths or sociopaths out there. But actually, what we have to remember is that most of them are not dangerous, that they might have some of these traits, but most of them are actually reasonably innocuous in society. So I think that's good, because it's, if you start to think about it, my goodness, there's loads of psychopaths out there and we didn't know, my neighbour's a psychopath and I didn't know. Like, that's a bit scary to think about. So I think and then I think it's, I think your final point there is good to remember. We do, even though sometimes people like this make you feel that they have power over you, really they don't. So it's good to remember the agency you have as well.
And even if they have a little tiny bit of power, I'm thinking like you're tied to someone financially or, family stuff. And like there could even be a sense of power there. But it's not everything. Like you also have the power to, it might take a while, but you do have the power to change things with the right support or decisions or planning or, so I think it is important to remember that. And sometimes, there've been periods in my life where I look back and I think that was completely unacceptable. I can't really believe I lived like that. But you can change it. Like it can just be a period in your life. You don't have to just accept things long term.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And, if you are going to come across people like this in your life, actually, and especially if it's in a situation that you can't escape for a period of time, like in a work scenario, it equips you with the skills to deal with them, because you will come across them again. So, think of it again like kind of a bit of a learning. Obviously it's not something you want to be learning about, but it does give you exposure to dealing with that type of personality, and then, how you'll deal with it again in the future. You'll be better equipped. So, and
I do think conversations like this are good as well, because you might have a few of these traits. Yeah. Like, we are human. We're not all perfect, myself included in them. I'm very much included in this. Like, we're not perfect humans walking the planet. We might have some of these traits. And I think knowing that about yourself as well, you might decide to make different decisions. Yeah. Or not, but you might.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So
bad. I think it's probably felt fairly self-explanatory, isn't it?
Yeah. I think so. I mean, is it bad to be a psychopath? We're saying that there's these traits and we can't necessarily help the traits that we have. I think there might be ways where if you find yourself manipulating situations in a way that isn't beneficial for other people or isn't pro-social, then maybe there is an argument there about trying to change that, trying to where you can. But, you know, if you're incapable of feeling empathy or understanding a different perspective, that's really hard to do. But you know, this again for another discussion one day about empathy, but you don't have to always have empathy to understand someone else. You don't have to, because empathy is feeling someone else's feelings like they're on you. Pros and cons with that. And you don't always have to do that. You can start to think about other people's perspectives.
Yeah.
And you can train yourself to be more pro-social or to kind of take other people into account as well, I guess.
Definitely. Yeah. Blurry?
I think the whole thing's blurry.
I think the whole thing
I
is
think
really
it's blurry because I don't think in general people wake up one day and think, do you know what? I really fancy being a psychopath and I'm going to go and grab that leadership position and I'm going to go. Like, it's blurry because it's all perspective again, isn't it? It's like my perspective versus someone else's perspective. And there really isn't, you know, in the world of psychology, there's not like a right way of doing things or a right kind of person to be. Like, this is the ideal. So I think the whole thing's blurry. I think this is something that will be in our society forever, probably has been.
But that's a really interesting thing. If it's so bad, why has evolution not managed it out?
Exactly.
There's obviously, in some ways, a need for people with these traits in
100%.
our society.
And also, you know, we're talking about it from a pro-social perspective here, but from an individual perspective, they're probably quite useful traits to have. So, you know, are we looking at this as bad for society or bad for that group of people or bad for that individual? You know, it kind of comes down to, I find the whole thing very blurry.
Yeah.
It's even blurry like the test. You know, we've just gone through like a 20 question test of whether you're a psychopath or not. And you know, that's not really going to tell you. It might give you an indication of you might want to go and find out some more information. Yeah. But it's never going to be like a diagnosis.
It's definitely not a definitive diagnosis.
And even if you were diagnosed as a psychopath, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
Like, that's a tricky position to be in. So I find this whole topic exceptionally blurry from start to finish.
It is. That means maybe we should go to the tombola for the next...
Yeah, 100%.
the next answer.
For the next answer. Okay, so are you going to twist the tombola?
Do you want to have a go?
I really want to have a go.
You want to have a go at the tombola. I knew you wanted to go at the tombola.
I know. Okay, right. There you go. Shall I let you...
Ooh. That's
See?
quite a satisfying little pop. Okay. Quite a big one.
Oh.
Are you ready? You're in the firing line today. Life feels non-stop at the moment. How do I avoid burnout?
Oh my God, that's such a big question.
I actually think we should do a whole episode on that.
100%. Maybe we should start with what burnout actually is. So I feel like you're better at this definition than I am, but I understand burnout. I feel like you're better at every definition. You retain things so much, so much better than I do. So burnout technically is when you feel that you don't have the resources to meet the demands in your life. So resources could be energy, it could be time, it could be maybe even enthusiasm, support to meet whatever demands are going on in your life.
And I want to add to that, really interestingly, the WHO, the World Health Organization, define burnout only in the work context.
Interesting.
But I don't think it's only about work. I think you can feel burnt out. You don't have to be in a workplace to feel burnt out, right?
100% you don't.
No.
Because think about like how crazy home life is and trying to juggle, well, I mean, that's probably another episode in itself. So I think my quick tip advice here is firstly, know where you are. So I have been through burnout, proper burnout. And I know lots of people live on the edge and they're close. And when you do get to that point, you can't do anything else. You physically have to stop because you get to the point where you can't respond to anything. Yep. Like it could be the needs of your family, or it could be work, or it could be... And when you get to that point, there is nothing you can do apart from stop. Because your body will force you eventually. Yeah. But what I learned in that process is there were lots of warning signs before.
Right. What were they for you?
Starting to feel overwhelmed, which I can have, every week. At one point or another, I can start to feel overwhelmed with the amount I'm juggling. A big one for me was things that used to feel like, would they be resources? I don't know, but things that used to build up my energy or make me feel good started to feel like a drain.
Yes.
So things like seeing friends or going for a nice walk, like chilling out with the dog or putting the kids to bed and like getting those snuggles. And, I'm not saying it's always easy peasy, but there is a bit of that I really do enjoy.
Yeah.
And those things started to feel like things I had to do or things I didn't really want to do. And they were kind of getting added to my list and felt like they were draining me. I think that was a big sign that I missed.
Yeah.
And like not wanting to socialise. I know we all go through points in time where I'm like, I just can't drag myself out. But it was getting to the point where it was all the time. Like I didn't really want to reply to messages.
Yes.
I didn't want to arrange to see someone or I didn't want to do something on Zoom because I've just been like, I've got so much to do. I can't give that any more energy. And also not feeling great as well, like energy-wise, no matter what I did, like going to the gym or exercise or like anything I did wasn't making me feel any better because it was kind of like I was tackling the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So they're the signs that I had. So my advice here is firstly, get to know those triggers, get to know those warning signs and find one or two things that you can do that will help to make you feel better.
Yeah.
It could be exercise. It could be socializing. It could be talking to someone. It could be cooking. It could be honestly,
whatever
it can be anything.
Yeah.
But everyone will have something that in general makes them feel better. And just, I don't care what it costs. I don't care what else has to drop in your life. You have to make that a priority because no one is going to do this for you.
Exactly. I think that's the thing that really gave me clarity with when it comes to burnout is that definition around resources and demands. Because the thing is, what happens with burnout is that people often think that burnout happens because you have way too many demands. But actually, when you have really high demands and really high resources, as in the exact number of resources you need almost to meet the demand that you have, your burnout risk is a lot lower. It happens when demands really far outweigh the resources you have in place. So it could happen when, for example, your demands stay stable, but key resources get taken away. So for a really good example of that is for working parents, when your childcare resource goes away for whatever reason. But if you think about resources can be anything from good sleep to the food that you eat to, as you say, if you enjoy cooking. For me, cooking is not a resource. For me, cooking is demand and a drain, right? So, but for other people, cooking is a resource. So it is, and this is, what we'll often come back to in this podcast. It's all about tuning into what it is that works for you. What are the resources that work for you? And so a resource for me might be going to see a comedy gig. Like some people think, it must be that I need to do more exercise and I need to eat better and I need to sleep better. Yeah. Okay, of course, all those things are important. I'm not going to say they're not. But actually, a resource in this situation, if you're feeling burnt out, it actually might be that you need to go out and enjoy yourself and allow yourself those few moments of escape and enjoyment. So it's really about trying out different things, I think, as well. And I agree, you do have to, when it gets to the really serious point of burnout, you absolutely have to stop. But before it gets to that point, try other things, not just the things that, you'll read on Instagram about all the health and wellness tips. It's not just about, of course, eating well, sleeping well, exercising. All of those things are essential. But it is also about filling your cup with the things that really mean something to you.
Guilt-free.
Guilt-free, 100%.
And I get so fed up with people talking about burnout and giving advice around productivity. So if you're feeling burnt out, you just need to delegate and only answer emails in the morning and bunch tasks together.
Yeah.
I'm not saying these things don't work. And also no one comes to me for productivity advice. I'm not the guru.
I would go to you for I definitely would not go to myself for productivity advice.
I
would go to you though.
But it really annoys me that there's this whole market of helping people deal with burnout by giving them productivity advice. If you delegate more, you won't be burnt out. Because there could be a whole host of other things going on. Okay, maybe it does help. Maybe it's a practical tool in some respects, but that is not burnout advice. Burnout advice is thinking about you psychologically as a human. It's not, have you got through all of your emails today? Now, that might be having a psychological impact on you. And a practical tool might help with that. But there's a whole host of other things that might be going on. And I think that is also the stuff that we need to focus on as well. Like emotionally, what it's doing to us, physically, what it's doing to us. I'm not entirely sure that we've cracked burnout in
Have we just done a full podcast episode on burnout without wanting to actually do a podcast on burnout?
And honestly, like, I feel like some of these topics we're going to be talking about are a bit bleak. Like psychopaths, that's a bit of a bleak topic. And burnout, oh my God, that could be so bleak. But we have to talk about it because if we don't,
they exist.
They exist.
Yeah.
This is the point. We're talking about everyday psychology here. Like, this exists in the world.
Well, I think we should come back to the burnout one.
Okay.
Another time, because I think we've given a bit of a tip of the iceberg there. It's an interesting topic, and burnout continues to be on the rise. So,
well, actually, I read a report this week saying burnout is on the rise again. So, whoever that sender was of that question, we will also come back to you.
Yeah.
On that note, if people want to get in touch with questions for the tombola, or just themes they want us to talk about, how are we getting people to do that? So comments, if you're listening or watching this in Spotify or YouTube, comment. We'll definitely check the comments, or DM the podcast.
If there's a question you want to ask you don't want to put out there in the public domain, send us a DM. If there's a topic that you want covered in the podcast, or if there's something you want to put in the tombola, send us a DM. We would love you to rate the podcast.
Only if it's 5 stars.
Only if it's 5 stars, okay. We would also love you to share it with whoever you think might enjoy listening or get something from it.
I mean, you could always send it to a psychopath.
Send it to, if you know someone who's a psychopath, maybe just casually leave a link, lying around.
I'm not sure we should end on this.
I'm not sure we've done it justice, really.
I think we need to cut that bit, maybe. Oh my God. It's about like leaving. Well, maybe, I don't know. It's blurry, right?
It's so blurry.
Right, until next time.